Stop, don't spend these coins before checking them. 2 presidential dollar coins could have details that collectors consider highly interesting: rare varieties, unusual mint errors, exceptional MS condition, and remarkable auction history. A 2009 D. George Washington $1 and a Millard Fillmore presidential dollar may look ordinary at first glance, but one tiny detail could completely change the story. Could yours be the valuable one? Watch until the end. Let's play with first coin. Have you ever found a 2009 $1 coin with a D mint mark and wondered whether it could be worth much more than $1? Today, we are looking at a fascinating United States presidential dollar connected to George Washington, the first U.S. president, who served from 1789 to 1797. But there is an important difference between an ordinary circulated coin and an exceptional example. Some 2009 Washington presidential dollars are common and may trade close to their face value, while coins with unusual varieties, major mint errors, or exceptionally high certified grades can attract considerably more attention from collectors. So before you assume that every 2009 D Washington dollar is a rare treasure, stay with me, because the date, mint mark, condition, variety, and actual auction history can completely change the story. The coin's presidential history. George Washington is one of the most recognizable figures in American history. He became the nation's first president in 1789 and remained in office until 1797. The Presidential Dollar Program was created to honor America's presidents in chronological order, making Washington the natural starting point of the series. That historical connection gives the coin an interesting place in modern American numismatics. However, historical importance alone does not automatically make a coin rare. Collectors still need to examine how many examples were produced, how many survive today, what condition they are in, and whether the individual coin has a recognized variety or mint error. That is where the real collecting story begins. The 2009 date matters. When collectors see 2009 on a presidential dollar, they should not immediately think rare. The 2009 issues belong to the later part of the presidential dollar series, and the Washington coin itself is a modern collectible rather than an automatically scarce antique. This is an important point for anyone searching through an old collection, a coin jar, or a group of inherited coins. A coin being more than a decade old does not necessarily make it valuable. Instead, collectors look for something that separates one example from thousands or millions of ordinary pieces. That difference could be a significant minting error, a recognized die variety, an unusually strong strike, or a high certified grade. What does the D mint mark mean? Now let's talk about the D mint mark. The letter D identifies the coin as having been struck at the Denver Mint. Mint marks are important because different United States mints produce different quantities of the same coin. But simply finding a D on a 2009 Washington presidential dollar does not make it rare. This is one of the biggest misunderstandings in modern coin collecting. The D is a useful identification feature, but rarity depends on the complete combination of date, mint, variety, condition, and demand. So if you have a 2009 D Washington dollar, don't stop your examination after finding the mint mark. The next question should be, what condition is the coin actually in? Circulated condition. Let's start with the most common situation, a coin that has been circulated. A circulated coin has been handled in everyday commerce and may show signs of wear, small marks, scratches, discoloration, or contact with other coins. For a typical 2009 D Washington presidential dollar, with ordinary circulation, wear, and no important variety or error, collectors generally should not assume a dramatic premium. In many cases, the coin's value can remain relatively close to its face value. That may sound disappointing, but it is actually useful information. Knowing that an ordinary coin is common allows collectors to concentrate their attention on the examples that genuinely deserve closer examination. The goal is not to call every coin rare. The goal is to identify the coin that has something unusual. Uncirculated and MS condition. Now the story changes when we move into uncirculated and professionally graded mint state, or MS, condition. Mint state coins have not received the same type of circulation where found on ordinary pocket change examples. But even here, there are different levels of quality. An MS coin can have contact marks, weak details, spots, scratches, or other imperfections that affect its grade. A coin receiving a high numerical grade from a respected grading service can therefore be much more interesting to serious collectors than an ordinary uncirculated example. This is why you may see completely different prices for coins that look almost identical in photographs. The difference may be the certified grade, surface quality, strike, eye appeal, or a recognized variety. Why MS sales can be confusing. One of the most important lessons in coin valuation is that an advertised price is not automatically a market value. A seller can list a coin for hundreds or thousands of dollars. That does not mean somebody actually paid that amount. For a serious valuation, collectors should distinguish between an asking price and a documented completed sale. Auction records are especially useful because they show what buyers actually paid under particular market conditions. And even then, one sale does not guarantee that the next coin will bring the same amount. A coin's grade, certification, timing, auction audience, and exact variety can all influence the result. The one-time sold claim. You may also encounter claims that a particular MS example has sold only once, or that a coin has a single recorded high-value sale. That kind of information can be interesting, but it needs careful interpretation. If there is only one documented sale for a very specific combination of grade and variety, that does not mean every 2009 Washington dollar is worth that amount. It means that that particular coin, in that particular condition and circumstance, achieved that particular result. This distinction is extremely important. A one-time auction result can be a valuable research clue, but it should never be turned into a guaranteed price for every coin of the same date and mint mark. Mint errors can change the story. Now we reach one of the most exciting areas of modern coin collecting, mint errors. A genuine major mint error can make a common modern coin much more desirable. Collectors may investigate examples with unusual striking characteristics, missing or incorrect elements, significant off-center strikes, doubled features, or other abnormalities that can be authenticated as genuine minting errors. But there is a warning here. Damage that happens after a coin leaves the mint is not automatically a mint error. Coins can become scratched, bent, discolored, flattened, or altered during circulation. That is why authentication matters. A spectacular-looking coin can be interesting without necessarily being rare. The importance of authentication. If you believe your 2009 Washington dollar has an unusual feature, avoid cleaning or polishing it. Cleaning can permanently affect the coin's surfaces and may reduce its desirability to collectors. Instead, photograph the coin under good lighting and compare it with reliable numismatic references. For an important suspected error or variety, professional authentication and grading can be worthwhile. A certified grade can also make an auction record easier to understand because buyers know exactly what condition the coin was assigned by the grading service. This is particularly important when researching claims of extremely high values. 2026 Market View. As we look at the 2026 numismatic market, collectors should focus on evidence rather than sensational headlines. Modern U.S. presidential dollars are widely collected, but most examples are not automatically high-value rarities. The strongest premiums tend to come from the characteristics that create genuine scarcity or collector demand. That means a 2009 Washington dollar should be evaluated individually. Ask 4 basic questions. Is it circulated or mint state? Does it have a recognized variety? Does it have a genuine mint error? And most importantly, is there a documented recent sale for a comparable coin? Those questions provide a much stronger foundation for valuation than an internet listing claiming an enormous price. Why every coin has a different story. This is also why 2 coins that look almost identical can have completely different market histories. One might be a normal circulated example that changes hands for a modest amount. Another might be a sharply struck, uncirculated coin. A third could have a recognized variety. And another might be a certified high-grade example with an unusual auction history. The date may be identical. The mint mark may be identical. Even the design may look identical. Yet the market can treat them very differently. In numismatics, the small details often tell the biggest story. What to check on your 2009 coin? If you have one of these coins at home, begin with the basics. Check the date and confirm that it is actually a 2009 Washington presidential dollar. Look for the D mint mark. Examine the edge lettering carefully, because presidential dollars are famous for their edge inscriptions and for varieties connected with edge lettering. Then inspect the surfaces and design details under good lighting. Do not immediately assume that a strange-looking feature is an error. Compare it with trustworthy references or seek an experienced numismatist's opinion. And remember, condition should be judged objectively, not simply by saying that a coin looks perfect. The big value question. So, could a 2009 George Washington presidential dollar be worth significantly more than $1? Potentially, yes, but not simply because it is a 2009 coin. A normal circulated example should not be confused with a scarce certified variety or a major authenticated mint error. Likewise, a high asking price on an online marketplace should not be confused with a confirmed auction result. The real value depends on the individual coin. That is the central lesson for collectors. Auction market and collector demand. The auction market provides another important piece of the puzzle. When a coin is offered publicly, several collectors may compete for it. If the coin has a desirable grade, recognized rarity, or unusual error, competition can increase. But market prices can move over time. A sale from several years ago may not represent the price a similar coin would receive in 2026. That is why the newest comparable sales are usually more useful when researching today's market. Collectors should record the date of the sale, grade, variety or error, certification, and final price whenever possible. That creates a much clearer picture than simply searching for the highest number on the internet. Final value warning. And here is the most important warning of the entire video. Do not sell a coin simply because someone online says it is worth thousands of dollars. First, identify the coin. Then identify its condition. Then determine whether the supposed error or variety is genuine. Finally, compare it with documented sales of genuinely comparable examples. A headline can say rare. A marketplace listing can say valuable. But the strongest evidence is an authenticated coin and a real market transaction. That is how serious numismatists separate a fascinating possibility from a proven value. Conclusion. The 2009 D. George Washington presidential dollar has an interesting place in American coin collecting because it connects a modern U.S. coin with the nation's first president and the beginning of the presidential dollar series. George Washington served as president from 1789 to 1797, and his portrait became the first issue in this presidential coin program. Most ordinary circulated examples should not be treated as automatic high-value rarities. However, unusual varieties, genuine mint errors, and exceptional certified mint state examples can create a much more interesting collecting story. Second, could a Millard Fillmore $1 coin with no visible date and no visible mint mark really be worth a surprising amount of money in the 2026 coin market? That is exactly the question we are investigating today. Millard Fillmore was the 13th President of the United States, serving from 1850 to 1853, and his appearance on a presidential dollar gives collectors an interesting connection between American history and modern coin collecting. But there is an important detail that every collector needs to understand before putting a huge price tag on a Fillmore dollar. The presidential term dates of 1850 to 1853 are historical dates. They are not the minting dates of the Millard Fillmore presidential dollar. That distinction matters enormously when researching value. So if you have a Millard Fillmore $1 coin and cannot find a date or mint mark, don't assume you have discovered a rare 19th century dollar. Instead, let's investigate exactly what you have, why the date may appear to be missing, where the mint information can be found, what circulation does to value, and why certain high-grade or error examples can attract much stronger collector interest. Millard Fillmore. The 13th President Millard Fillmore became the 13th President of the United States after the death of President Zachary Taylor in 1850. His presidency lasted until 1853, placing him in a fascinating period of American history. Fillmore's presidential dollar later became part of the United States Mint's presidential dollar series. That means collectors can encounter his portrait on a modern $1 coin, even though Fillmore himself lived in the 19th century. This is one reason these coins can be confusing to new collectors. The person represented on the coin may have lived more than 150 years ago, while the actual coin was produced in the 21st century. So the first step in valuation is always to separate the historical date associated with the president from the actual production date of the coin. What is a Millard Fillmore presidential dollar? The Millard Fillmore presidential dollar was issued as part of the United States presidential dollar program. The coin carries Fillmore's portrait on the obverse, while the reverse features the Statue of Liberty design used throughout the series. Unlike an old 19th century silver dollar, this is a modern dollar coin. That means rarity works differently. A coin does not become rare simply because the president lived a long time ago. Instead, collectors examine production quantities, surviving examples, varieties, errors, condition, certification, and actual market demand. This is why a normal circulated Fillmore dollar can have a very different value from a spectacular mint state example. The no date question. Now let's discuss the most interesting part of today's topic. No date. If you look at some presidential dollars and cannot immediately see a date, don't panic. Presidential dollars use edge lettering, meaning important inscriptions, including the date and mint mark, appear around the edge of the coin rather than in the traditional position on the front or back. This is extremely important. A collector may look at the obverse and say, there is no date. Then they turn the coin over and see no date on the reverse either. That does not necessarily mean the coin is a rare no-date variety. The date and mint information need to be examined around the edge. This is one of the first things you should check before making any claim about rarity. If the edge really has no date. Suppose you inspect the edge carefully and still cannot identify a date. Now the coin becomes more interesting, but it does not automatically become extremely valuable. The edge lettering on presidential dollars can be weak, worn, incomplete looking, or difficult to read. Circulation can also damage or wear the lettering. In addition, Some unusual edge lettering varieties and errors have been studied by collectors. That is where expert identification becomes important. A genuinely unusual mint-made error can be collectible. A coin whose lettering has simply been worn away through circulation is a completely different situation. The two can look similar to an inexperienced collector. The market, however, can treat them very differently. CIRCULATED Millard Fillmore dollar. Let's start with an ordinary circulated Fillmore dollar. A circulated coin has spent time in everyday use and may show contact marks, scratches, wear, discoloration, or reduced detail. Modern presidential dollars were produced in substantial quantities, so a normal circulated example should not automatically be described as a rare coin. In many cases, its value may remain relatively close to face value. That doesn't make the coin uninteresting. It simply means that collectors need to identify something beyond the basic date and presidential portrait to justify a substantial premium. This is where varieties, errors, and condition enter the story. Condition can change the value. Now imagine two Fillmore dollars sitting next to each other. The first has obvious circulation marks. The second has bright, clean surfaces and appears almost untouched. Even though they are the same basic issue, collectors may value them differently. The second coin may qualify for an uncirculated or mint state grade depending on its actual condition. But remember something important. A coin that looks shiny is not automatically MS65, MS67, or another high grade. Professional grading considers multiple characteristics, including surface preservation, strike, luster, and other details. That is why certified examples can be particularly useful when researching auction results. MS condition and the 2026 market mint state examples are where the discussion can become much more interesting. A certified high-grade Millard Fillmore dollar may attract collectors who specialize in presidential dollars or modern U.S. coins. However, high grade alone does not guarantee a huge price. The market still depends on scarcity and demand. An ordinary coin in MS condition can remain relatively affordable if many comparable examples exist. On the other hand, a coin with an unusual and authenticated error combined with a high grade can become much more desirable. This is why collectors should never value a coin solely by looking at the number printed on a seller's online listing. One-time auction sales, you may see a claim that a particular Millard Fillmore dollar sold for a surprisingly high amount and that the coin has only one recorded sale at that grade. That can certainly be interesting, but one auction result should be interpreted carefully. If an MS example has only one documented sale, that number describes the result of that particular transaction. It does not establish a guaranteed value for every Fillmore dollar. The exact grade matters, the certification matters, the variety or error matters, the auction date matters, and the strength of bidder demand matters. A single exceptional sale should therefore be treated as a historical market record, not as a guaranteed price for the next coin you find. Why auction results? Researching a potentially valuable coin. Completed auction sales are generally more informative than unsold advertisements. Imagine someone lists a Fillmore dollar online for $5,000. The dollars tells us what the seller hopes to receive. It does not prove that a buyer will pay $5,000. Now imagine an authenticated example actually sells at auction for a documented amount. That gives collectors a much stronger piece of evidence. Even then, the best comparison is a coin that matches as closely as possible in grade, variety, error status, and certification. This is how professional numismatic research becomes more reliable. The importance of the mint mark. The mint mark is another detail that can create confusion. On presidential dollars, the mint information is associated with the edge lettering rather than being displayed prominently beside the portrait. So if you are searching for a mint mark and cannot find one on either face of the coin, check the edge. A missing visible mint mark on the face is therefore not automatically evidence of a rare mint error. You need to determine whether the edge lettering is present, weak, missing, damaged, or genuinely absent because of a minting problem. That distinction can completely change the collecting story. A true error is different. This is one of the most important lessons in modern coin collecting. A genuine mint error happens during the manufacturing process. Post-mint damage happens after the coin leaves the mint. For example, a coin can become scratched, worn, scraped, or otherwise damaged after entering circulation. Those marks may look unusual, but they do not automatically create a valuable mint error. A recognized mint error, especially one that is dramatic and authenticated, can be much more desirable. So if your Fillmore dollar looks unusual, resist the temptation to immediately call it rare. First, determine what caused the unusual feature. Don't clean the coin. If you believe your Fillmore dollar could be valuable, don't polish it. Don't scrub it. Don't use chemicals to make it look brighter. And don't try to repair an unusual edge. Cleaning can alter the original surfaces and potentially hurt collector appeal. Instead, preserve the coin as you found it and document its condition. Take clear photographs of both faces and the entire edge. For a potentially significant variety or mint error, professional numismatic evaluation may be worthwhile. WHAT MAKES 1 FILLMOA dollar different. This is where every coin tells a different story. One Fillmore dollar might be an ordinary circulated piece. Another might be a nice uncirculated coin. A third could have a distinctive edge lettering variety. A fourth might have an authenticated mint error. And another could be a high-grade certified example with a particularly interesting auction history. They all carry the same presidential portrait, but they don't necessarily have the same market value. That's the beauty of coin collecting. The small details can separate an everyday coin from a genuinely collectible. Example 2026 numismatic market. Looking at the numismatic market in 2026, collectors should be especially careful with sensational online claims. Modern dollar coins are frequently advertised with enormous theoretical values, but a theoretical price is not the same thing as a proven market price. For an accurate valuation, compare your coin against recent, documented sales of the same issue. Pay attention to certified grades, look for the exact variety, confirm whether an alleged error has been authenticated, and always consider whether the sale is recent enough to provide useful information about the current market. This approach is far more reliable than simply searching for the largest number attached to a similar-looking coin. Can a no-date FILLMOA dollar be valuable? So let's return to our main question. Can a Millard Fillmore dollar with no obvious date and no obvious mint mark be valuable? It can be worth investigating, but the missing information alone does not prove that the coin is rare. First, check the edge. Remember that presidential dollar dates and mint information are found through the edge lettering. If the lettering is difficult to read because of circulation wear, that is different from a confirmed mint error. If you believe the coin has a genuine missing or abnormal edge feature created at the mint, professional examination becomes much more important. Only after identification can you meaningfully discuss a high market value. MS value. Don't confuse grade with rarity. Another common mistake is assuming that every MS Fillmore dollar is automatically a high dollar coin. Mint state means the coin has not been circulated in the normal sense, but MS coins exist across many different grades. A common modern coin can be found in high grade without being extraordinarily rare. The combination of high grade plus scarcity plus collector demand is what makes the strongest cases. This is why an MS coin that sold once for a notable amount should be compared carefully with other examples. One remarkable transaction can be fascinating. It does not rewrite the entire market. The biggest mistake collectors make the biggest mistake is looking at a coin and starting with the price. Start with identification instead. What coin is it? Where was it made? When was it made? What is its condition? Is the unusual feature genuine? Is there a recognized variety? Has a comparable coin actually sold? Those questions create a logical path from identification to valuation. Skipping those steps can lead to exaggerated expectations. And in coin collecting, accurate identification is often worth more than a dramatic headline. Final 2026 value message. The Millard Fillmore presidential dollar is an interesting modern American collectible connected to the nation's 13th president. Fillmore served from 1850 to 1853, but those dates should not be confused with the production date of his presidential dollar. If your coin appears to have no date or mint mark, examine the edge lettering before assuming it is a rare no-date coin. If the coin is circulated, ordinary wear may limit its premium. If it is a high-grade MS example, certification and exact grade become important. If it has an unusual edge feature, determine whether it is a recognized mint error or simply circulation damage. And if you find a claim about a huge auction price, look for the actual completed sale and compare the exact coin characteristics. Conclusion: so, is your Millard Fillmore $1 coin worth $1, several dollars, or potentially much more? The answer depends on the individual coin. The president's historical importance makes the coin interesting. The presidential dollar series makes it collectible. The condition can affect desirability. The edge lettering can reveal important information. A genuine mint error or recognized variety can change the equation. And an authenticated high-grade example can have a very different market story from an ordinary circulated coin. That is why you should never assume that every Fillmore dollar has the same value. Every coin is different. Every condition tells a different story, and every auction result has its own context. If you have a Millard Fillmore dollar, take a close look at the portrait, reverse, surfaces, and especially the edge. You might have an ordinary modern dollar, or you might have a coin with a detail that deserves a closer numismatic investigation. Subscribe for more 2026 US coin values, rare dollar coins, mint errors, MS-graded coins, auction records, and collector market updates. And remember, don't trust the biggest price you see, trust the evidence behind the sale.